Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Fab.
Okay, hi viewers. However many of you are seeing this. This is Doug X, and I am having the pleasure today of interviewing Linda Tirado. Linda, can you introduce yourself to some people who may not be familiar with you?
Yeah, so I lived multiple lives. The first one you may know me for is for a while I was poverty chick, and then after that I did econ and protests for a while and some foreign policy. And then after that I failed to duck in Minneapolis and went and got shot by police, hence the eye patch and the journalism. So that's the short version.
Um, I believe me, I can relate, not relate to that specifically, but as a criminal defense attorney, I'm aware of the overenthusiasm of police.
They
So,
were very enthusiastic, yes.
oh,
Excuse me, I'm just gonna grab my
yeah,
drink.
take your time.
I
There's
can hear
no,
I can hear you.
so, um, I just learned an interesting thing about California law that just happened to one of my clients. Um,
Okay.
you have a right in California in a felony case to have a judge review the charges and see if there's any substance to them. And if they're not, the charges are supposed to be dismissed. And so I did a preliminary hearing for my client, and two of the three charges were dismissed, leaving only one remaining charge, one remaining count. But when I got to the arraignment stage, the client had two counts, not one. And so I called the DA and I said, "Is there a mistake?" Because I thought the judge dismissed two of the three counts. And the DA said, "Oh, yeah, no, the judge totally dismissed two of the three counts, but I added one back in." And apparently, that's just fine under California law. So the protection we have is kind of meaningless because even if a judge removes it, the DA can just put it back in with no supervision.
So do you now have to go back and be like, okay, cool, well, we'll just have it taken out again then, and then they put it like, is this like a forever like ping pong scenario?
It's never happened to me personally before, so I have to review the case law. But yes, there's a motion I can do to go back to the judge and say, "Hey, remember how you removed this once? Can you do it again?"
We would
But
like you to rule that you had previously ruled that your ruling that you had previously ruled was correct.
yes, or for a different judge to say, "Yes, the previous judge was correct." But it's a pain in the ass. Like the whole idea is it's a protection to protect you from the DA making up charges that aren't substantiated. And they're like, "Yeah,
The law is
so
fun.
I can just overrule a judge. It's fine. It's fine." Judges are they just have optional input. And I'm like, one of the few aspects I like of California law is this preliminary hearing where you have to meet a threshold. And it turns out you don't really have to meet that threshold after all, apparently.
You have to believe in the thresholds.
Being a criminal defense attorney is always like, hey, there's this rule that protects defendants. Great. Oh, yeah, except that 10 years after it was passed, they found a way to completely undermine it. So now it has like no real protection.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're a criminal defense attorney. So anybody that will be watching this should know that I am not an attorney, nor am I acting as your attorney, nor am I dispensing legal advice. What I am is a journalist. And
Well,
given the state of the nation and the things that are happening, it is incumbent upon me to remind you to not say anything in fucking public that you would not like to hear read out in open court. This applies to public, anything that might be made public, emails, group chats. Don't say shit in your group chat. It might be made public. If you don't want to hear it in front of a judge, don't say it outside of your head. This has been your PSA from journalism on behalf of the lawyer.
yeah, well, it's true. I mean, so I'm just asking your opinions about some of the issues of the day, and then I'll have you talk about anything you want to opine about. But for the first question, I guess, what do you think of the Supreme Court ruling that came out a couple of days ago saying that racial profiling, previously unconstitutional, is now just fine?
Um, I think that when the court has decided that it lives or dies by precedents, and that also that precedents only started existing in 1942, that the court's doing a fine job.
Well, it's very upsetting to me. I'm like, there's one of the few protections we had was you had to have more than just race as an issue
I
to.
think right about the time that they said that Dred Scott was a great ruling, I kind of checked out. Like right about the time everybody's like, we're not sure. Dred Scott may not have been the worst thing we ever like. There's worse things we've done, surely. I kind of was like, yeah, let's. And then when they started saying that anything that is an official act is legal because he's the president, because sure, let's do that. In no world does anybody have any political opinion on the president saying I can do it and it's legal because I'm the president. That's never happened in history. um I no, I think the court is hollowing out protections and signaling that they prefer continuity over governance, and more clearly that they see the American experiment as a fucking hot potato that they don't want to be responsible for the downfall of. And so they're making the most cowardly decisions possible in order to avoid taking the blame.
All right, so that's actually something I want to follow up on because some people say that John Roberts in the Roberts court is afraid to say no to Trump because if they say no and he ignores it, then it pretty much it's like poof, we're in an autocracy or we're in a fascist state. So they think by saying yes to them, they somehow avoid this constitutional crisis. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think those people just started paying attention to John Roberts last year.
Yeah, I think he paved the way for this autocracy. I think he's fully on board with the idea of the U.S. as a dictatorship.
John Roberts wanted the Roberts court and got it. He made his deals to get it. And I think we're seeing those play out. And do I think he would have made the same deal knowing how far they'd take it? That I'm less sure of. But I do know that he made the deal and he's seeing it play out. And whether or not he's happy with it, he's the one that did it.
Do you think you mean, oh, sorry about that. Do you mean that he wanted to be like the deciding vote, like Kennedy was, like to be the fifth guy who could decide to side with the liberals or the conservatives, and that
No,
having,
I think he wanted the Roberts court in the history books the way we discussed the Warren court. Or I think he wanted to be the Chief Justice and have an era of governance of named after him, where that was him, that was his immortality, that's how he's going to make it. And in the judiciary it really is the pinnacle, right? Like, at least in the American experiment, there is no international judiciary that would be a higher honor. The Supreme Court's basically it, and if you're running Supreme Court, you've maxed it, you've won. So I think that was his goal, and he allied himself with the right because he's naturally conservative. And I don't think that John Roberts is the sort to have been like, yeah, Steve Bannon's my guy. But by the time Steve Bannon showed up, Roberts was already so far into it that he couldn't get himself out. Who's going to fund John Roberts at that point except for the Bannon crew?
so you don't think that things got ahead of him when Amy Coney Barrett was appointed and, and Kavanaugh, and suddenly they had five crazies plus him. I don't like John Roberts. I don't think he's a good guy. I think he's
Yeah,
less crazy than the other five, but that's an extremely low bar.
I think of John Roberts in the same way that I think of Paul Ryan. Like, I think John Roberts and Paul Ryan are exactly the same guy. Which is Paul Ryan was out there talking about how the poor had these hammocks of the safety net and sitting there all cushy. He would absolutely blame your grandma for the behavior of bankers, but also he would not be out there talking about which body parts he would be grabbing on, and he would not be overturning 50 years of precedent. He might find a shitty way to work around it, but he wouldn't just straight overturn it the way that the Roberts Court is doing. So I think that Roberts got caught up because he thought he could run them, and he's finding out that you can't win against people that have no rules if the battleground is rules. It's like the British showing up and being like, "We're gonna pop some shots at you. What are you all doing in the forest? Get out here and fight!" Like, uh, cool. Have fun with that, guys. Thanks for wearing targets.
Yeah, well, I think someone, pointed out that, you know, they said something like Trump puts his opponents in a quandary where if they fight fair, they can't win. And someone said, I think it was Tim Miller, well, he cheats. And then if the referee doesn't, there's no referee to stop him from cheating, then you either have to cheat yourself or just be at a permanent disadvantage. Um, So yeah, I think that's very. Go
I
ahead.
think there's that, and I think there's also too that Trump cheats, but if you've already given your imprimatur to Trump, then you have to be seen to not think that that is a problem. Else, you've just said that you admitted you let that guy do it to begin with, and you were the idiot that let him in the door. And so I think there's a whole lot of well, that wasn't me though. I didn't mean for that to happen. I never would have done that. So this well, now we have to let him do it because we already made the bet. So we have to let him prove that it's going to work out because otherwise it doesn't work out and then I'm the baddie. So there's an awful lot of like, well, hope this one goes well, boys, because we're can't unring that bell.
Well, I'm a fan of referees and rules. Like I was in a judo tournament once, and a guy put his hand, and he ended up like getting his finger towards my eye, and I was like, "Hey, dude, that's my eye," and he said, "Oh, sorry," and he moved his hand. As opposed to a fight where I had it with someone where there was no rules, and this was a boot camp, who just, dug his finger further into my eye. So, you know, I think that there's nice when rules are maintained and certain things are not okay. But anyway,
It, it should, yeah.
and I don't think that cheaters or people I think so people say bullies are cowards. In my experience, bullies are not cowards. My experience, bullies are people who are more ruthless than everyone else and have no problem breaking rules. And you create a culture that either admires that or it decries that. And unfortunately, I think we've got a culture of win at all cost.
I mean, I pursuant to my previous point, the only public statement that I have made about Charlie Kirk is that the state of Utah is known as the Beehive State because its residents wanted to be known as industrious and problem-solving types of people. And that is going to be the sum total of my comment on the politics of that situation. However, as far as an indicator of where society is, I think that the irony of a guy getting hit by a groiper who thinks he's not far right enough, who was trying to false flag it to look like he was a liberal because they're all accelerationists, and that the accelerationists who are supposed to be the small little internet community full of keyboard warriors are now showing up and shooting people. I think we do have to talk about the fact that the guy got shot while he was blaming school shootings and mass shootings on the people that were not about to fatally shoot him while he was mid sentence. Like he had just finished his sentence and took a wound. And I am not advocating anybody watch snuff films, but this is what I do for a living. And so I have watched this video exhaustively and I watched the timing of it because this is my job. And I am telling you that there is not a fiction writer in the world that would let that pass for a Sorkin plot because they would say it was overwrought and too tightly scripted. No, that doesn't happen in life. And I think that when those sorts of things when the joke of the entire internet is the writer's room could never, we're not in normal order anymore. So I think having to deal with that and grapple with the fact that half the country thinks this is normal order. They think this is normal order, and they're not thinking of it from the perspective of the 60s and 70s when we had bombings and we had things like that, because for us, a gun is easier to get, and we're not seeing it on the nightly news, and so now it's way more violence, but it's not hitting politically in the same way that it was because it's not a pipe bomb, it's an AR-15, and we all know somebody with an AR, somebody's grandpa has one on a farm somewhere, somebody's got a cowboy cousin, somebody knows a fucking LARPer. Those things are not unfamiliar in the way that the anarchist cookbook is. And so I think having to grapple with all of that against a background of they're shooting each other for not being crazy enough, like how do we ration and reason with that?
Well, if there was any good faith actors to ration or reason with, but none of them are good faith actors.
Well, they
And
seem to be saying that Charlie Kirk was the good faith actor, and I'm like, buddy, if that's your standard, you got some problems there.
well, I think it's ironic that someone who said gun violence is okay and acceptable was killed by gun violence. It's like, okay, well, that is the very definition of, hoist on your own petard.
I find absolutely no irony in it, and I say that as a bitch who took a headshot and didn't die. I think that I, for years, said, "Look, this is gonna get violent and it's gonna be bad, and if you're gonna get out there, you're gonna get hit." And I think I got hit. And what I did with that was be like, "Well, that's what I said would happen," and moved the hell on with my life about it. And I honestly, if that's his position, if he would have come back and been like, "Nope, I said it, I meant it, happened to me, still meant it," you're an idiot and you're wrong, but I can respect that. And I think that it's interesting to me that all of these people have never been tested as to whether they actually believe the things they say when it comes to bite them in the ass, are the ones out there being very bold.
Well, yes. But I don't know what he would have done, but since he never took responsibility previously, I find it hard to find that he would take responsibility at the end.
I just find nothing ironic about him being offered the chance to back up everything he ever said. I think that's great.
Well, I think they said his last words were gang violence, so no, it didn't seem like the
Mhm.
last minute conversion. Although
He
last week,
he And if there is an afterlife, we will be able to ask him, "Well, what did you have to say about gun violence a couple of seconds after the last time we got to talk to you?" And we will find out then.
if you get the psychic, I'll zoom the seance.
Yeah, I would not waste my psychic time on Charlie Cook, man. I had to sit next to that guy in real life. I can't imagine wanting to, like, pay to do a shadow version. That ew.
Wait, well, that's fascinating. What was it like to sit next to him in real life?
Oh, just as insufferable as you'd think. None of these guys are interesting in any way. I sat down next to him, and for a minute there, I was real popular on the right because when the Bundys took over the wildlife reservation, I knew the difference between Black Lives Matter and the Bureau of Land Management, like before I got out there, and I knew what an AUM was. So everybody thought I was like had some soft spark spot for right wingers. Because I was like, no, these are a bunch of really poor people being lied to and predated upon, and they're driving across the country armed because they really think they should. And like, we should feel bad for them and we should do something about that. These other guys that are leading them are pricks. But for a minute, everybody thought I was going to be the next Cassandra Fairbanks or whatever and have a big conversion. And they let me into the rooms, and they'd be so I was being courted. They weren't trying to offend me. They were trying to see if I was cool. Right? So they would tell jokes like, "Are you cool? Are you cool?" The way that they do of like, "Oh, I'm gonna say something that's slightly racist and see if she laughs. Let's see something that's like slightly out of the way and see if she gets offended." And I'm not offended by anything. You can say anything in front of me. I'm going to call you a moron and think that you're ridiculous and that you have the intellect of a bug, and then I'm not going to consider you any further. But why would I get angry at a bug for screaming at me? I don't give a fuck what you do. It only bothers me if it hurts somebody else. So they're doing whatever, big jokes. Let's do all this crazy feminist shit, piss off the blue hair lady. And I just kind of went, that joke would have been better if you like had tighter writing. Is Milo here? Milo has better jokes than you. And then I called over Milo and I said, "Hey, you want to help this guy out?" And he said, "Well, why? What's going on, Leb?" And I said, "Well, his jokes are really shitty and I'm bored." And then I never talked to Charlie Kirk again.
That's probably the best way to talk to him. Your
It's the
material
only
didn't.
way to survive those circuits.
I think that's a Raymond Chandler line. Who writes your dialogue, buddy?
Yeah, it's like because in those rooms, nobody is there. The harm that is happening there is happening outside the rooms. Like, nobody cares where these guys eat at dinner or what jokes they tell or who they talk to amongst each other. They're going to do that on the internet or at a dinner. Doesn't matter. But there's no people in the room that are actually going to be affected by these guys saying a word or a sentence or a theory out loud for shock. And in fact, if I react with shock and I'm like, "Oh my God, I've never heard of 8chan," like, no, you guys are mid 2000s edge lords. Like, what are you doing? We grew out of that. Why did you bring it back? You brought back measles and edge lord memes. Like, and you didn't even bring back goat seed. Like, have a grow a pair. What are you doing? This is horrifying. It's gonna shock you. Is it a prolapse anus? Is it?
Yeah, well, I thought I was pretty jaded until that preliminary hearing, like I was telling you. The prosecution introduced video of a jailhouse rape and
Oh,
seeing that. And so I saw that, and that's something I can't unsee.
no, that's brutal. Just today, are you all right, dude?
No, not today, about 3, 4 weeks ago, but
Oh,
it's
okay,
still
I thought, why are you doing a podcast right after that?
no, no. I'm saying I thought I had thick skin and things couldn't rattle me, and then I found I could be rattled, which I suppose is a good thing to know that there is a line.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of things that do bother me. It's just not the things I've developed a very thick skin for things that people intend to bother me with. The things that I find bothersome are the ones that they don't even notice. Like, there are starving people and you're just walking right by them. That's horrific. What are you doing? But if somebody comes up and, I'm gonna, okay, whatever, dude. I once had a guy tell me that, like, he was tired of listening to feminists having onanistic orgies. That is brilliant. The best you can do is a rape threat? That guy came up with onanistic orgies. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to offend me with crudity, I suppose, is really what it is. If you're coming at me with something and you're like, "This is gonna really hit you," I'm like, "Dude, I'm from places. It's very unlikely." But,
Well,
the cruelty scares me.
there's certainly enough of it. Um, so I also said I'm going to try and put some PayPal links at the bottom of this when I post it on YouTube. Do you want to talk about your personal situation, what happened post being shot by the police with supposedly non-lethal bullets?
Oh, yeah. So it turns out that medical care in America, this will shock you to hear, not great. Also, when the police shoot you, the state doesn't like to pay for your medical bills. So I eventually had to settle out because a fun thing about being a plaintiff is anything that you write during the entire legal process is potentially discoverable. And because I'm a journalist, that meant that anything that I wrote in my journals to process my injury, any background materials for unrelated articles I was writing, all of that could theoretically go through and pass the eyes of a police department. And I would have no legal recourse about that. So I was essentially stopped from recording physical words for years. And I finally settled, and the medical bills did not stop coming. And so, if you would love to support the work, which I do, Doug can tell you, I give away often at length. My Venmo is Linda Tirado 3. My PayPal is bootstrapindustries at Gmail. And if you go to lindatirado.com, you'll find my store, which is give, I don't know, whatever you want to over the cost of shipping and production and get yourself a mug or a shirt of a photo I took in London or whatever I have managed to remember to put up there.
And are you looking for people to reach out to you to write articles and do YouTube interviews? Is that something you want people to contact you with about?
Oh, yeah, thanks for reminding me. Another impact was that I did get brain damage, so I forget things very easily. I get distracted, but I am coming back into the world, which means I am available, and I am wildly interested in having these discussions with people. I am a published author, and a thing that people often think is that I'll probably be too busy or like that I won't pay attention to a small creator. If you've got a podcast and 3 people watch it, that is a discussion I want to have. I'm disabled. I can't just go to a restaurant and be part of the commons. If you bring the commons to me, I think that's fucking great. And if you happen to have people that pay you for your podcast and you want to pay me, I think that's fucking greater. But that's not a prerequisite at all.
Well, when you say 3 listeners, I think you've aptly described my podcast slash YouTube channel. Um, but hopefully it is a growing thing. And
I'm sure it will be.
well, I did an interview with Jonathan Simon before I started writing for him because that would have been a conflict of interest.
Mhm.
And um, someone used that found my YouTube and watched it and then reached out to me on Facebook passionately. What does Jonathan think of the 2024 election? So we had one passionate watcher listener who who avidly wanted more content.
Well, fantastic, and, I should also tell you my social handles are Killer Martinis anywhere, and I'm also on Substack, but don't open up anything I've ever done or written at work, ever, where somebody might see the screen because 50-50, you're gonna get really solid analysis or a granular discussion in the vernacular about the relative sexual attractiveness of various kinds of fish.
Well, I did actually listen to your audiobook and read the book of your book about living poverty. I think it was Hand to Mouth is the title.
Mhm.
I don't know if you actually talk about that book much anymore since you've moved on, but I definitely read it. I think you mentioned that was being taught in a college class.
It's actually taught in a lot of college classes. Weirdly, it's taught in most Ivy League schools as econ and sociology. Um, because it is 288 pages of wow, it sucks to be poor. Have you ever done minimum wage math? Math, great. I literally said 7.25 times 52 times 40 equals $15,040. And people said, how insightful.
uh, well, I think you said you were inspired by, and I mean, and you actually, like you had in your preface, that, owes a debt to the journalist who spent 3 months trying to live poor in America and describe what that was like.
That was Barbara Ehrenreich.
Yeah.
She was my mentor, decided, and but she didn't warn me that she was going to tell people that I was carrying her torch before she died. But she went ahead and did it. But she famously spent years working minimum wage jobs to write nickel and dimes, which until my book came out had been considered kind of the definitive lived experience of working poor math.
Yeah, well, I grew up middle class, but I joined the military right out of high school. And then after the military, I thought I could find work and found out that I could only pretty much find about roughly minimum wage work, and that there was no real way to, no matter how capable or smart you were, there was no way to transition out of minimum wage work without a college degree. And so eventually I went to college and then eventually law school. But I lived poor for many years and still think like living poor.
It never
Yeah.
leaves.
Yeah. And just understanding, that's like um yeah. Um I had a friend who was liberal at one point, and then as he became a lawyer and started making well over six figures, he became more less and less sympathetic to my political views, which became more and more leftist.
Mhm. Yeah, shocking how that happens.
uh, I mean, I hate taxes as much as the next person, but I'm like, let's just, tax the rich more. Property taxes, estate taxes. Maybe let's not design an economy to benefit the oligarchs.
I mean,
Although,
there's that, and then there's the thing that all of money is technically fiat. There's this artist called Ren. His real name's Ren Gill, and he's Welsh, and he worked largely out of Brighton for years. But he's got a song called "Money Game Part Two," and the there's a line. Uh, this is business economics in a nursery rhyme, and then it's just, and the rest of the song is just she sells seashells on the seashore, but it also gets into, how we do forest things and oil. So, and actually it's a really catchy tune, you should check it out, but it's just basic like that. So when you have people that become protective, it makes sense, but also it's all kind of made up. So I don't pay much attention.
well, sure, but all of society is made up.
Oh, yeah, it's hard for me to get angry at other people making moral decisions based on economic factors when they think of economic factors as truly real in a way that I don't consider them to be. Um, it must hurt a lot if you really think that your value is more or less dependent on what's in your bank account because you really absorbed those lessons. It must really hurt to be seen to be poorer than you are, or not to show off, or not to buy that toy. And so all of this behavior and all of these attitudinal changes become very rational when you think of it like that. It's just that, like, it doesn't matter what I earn or don't earn because it's all made up anyway. I'm just going to spend it on paint. If I'm going to spend it on paint and give it to homeless people, it doesn't matter if it's 100 or 1,000 or a million, not really. But then again, I don't when I published the book and I started moving in spaces and lecturing at the London School of Economics, and in University of Sydney and places like that, I found that because I didn't do it slowly, I didn't make those incremental changes your friend did. I went from the night line. My last night was Black Friday in 2013, and then my book came out within a year of that, and all of a sudden I was at the top of the mountain. And so I didn't have to make all of those tiny decisions coming up that most people do.
Well, I don't know if you either agree with this or thought this before, but I think people judge others and themselves by the thing that they have the most amount of. So I think beautiful people judge other people by their looks, wealthy people judge other people by their money, very intelligent people judge people by their intelligence, And so like you value what you have the most of.
Yeah, because that's the easy thing for you, so why can't everybody else just do that? Like, their lives would be so much easier if they just did that.
Well, I mean, if
Not that
you,
they
yeah,
wouldn't
of
have
course.
these other problems, but yeah, so I would agree with that, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you set the axis of self-worth, at least if you have a healthy sense of self-worth, you want to set the axis where you're going to benefit the most from. But I got this, it came to me. I had an ex-girlfriend who came from a very wealthy family. She came to a Mensa convention and I was at, and she said, these people talk about their intelligence the same way my father's friends talk about their money.
Mhm.
And so that was the impetus of the idea is that, okay, people, is that everybody's judgmental. It's just what are the coordinates and axes? And from that, I figured it's the one that most benefits you. So like I'm being ugly, I don't want to judge people by their looks, but I probably do judge people by their ethics and intelligence, which is why I hold you in high esteem. And on that little love fest, I think I'll draw this to a close unless there's anything else you want to share with the people.
Yes, and it's this. You are about to go through a period where you feel very alone and very unsure and very, very like you should do something, but you won't know what. And on that day, when that itch gets really hard, I need you to go outside the door, turn right, keep walking until you find a problem you can solve. Solve it, go the fuck back home, finish your day. If you do that when you get an itch, you will find that people get fed, babies get hats, homeless guys get cigarettes. Everybody's a little bit happier. Everybody knows that they're not alone. If everybody just goes outside and turns right until they find a problem they can fix, it is as easy as that. That is how to maintain a society.
Like the parable of the man on the shore with the starfish.
Maybe. I don't know that one.
I think it has different parameters, but there's a guy on the shore and he sees just like, hundreds of starfish all washed up and, dying from lack of water. And he picks one up and he throws it into the ocean. And his friend says, there are hundreds of them. What difference does that make? And he goes, it makes a difference to that starfish.
Yes. Very like.
It makes a difference to that one.
Pretty big one
Well,
too. So, yep, there you are. That's where I will leave it.
all right. Well, it's really nice talking to you. I very much appreciate your time. And once this goes up on YouTube, I'll share it with you.
All right. Cheers, Doug.
Cheers. You can log off. I'm gonna have to figure out how to end this thing. Oh, there it is. There's the end button.
Bye, babe.
Bye.